Hi, class. I'm going to speak briefly on the theme of social entrepreneurship. This is a topic lodged within Week 2 syllabus, and I'll be attaching an article in our list of readings, a supplementary reading, on the definitions of social entrepreneurship. In this case, I did want to go ahead and put my 2 cents worth in and kind of frame things a bit. Social entrepreneurship has become kind of a buzzword for the activities of very often charismatic types who become closely identified personally with a cause or pushing a particular solution or policy agenda. The term, the idea of the social entrepreneur also speaks to this kind of a resonance with the idea of the kind of the investment capitalist. And so you get that kind of parallel theme and that association with the idea that a nonprofit operation can benefit from adopting a lot of the practices of investment entrepreneurs. And there is something to that. It persists because it does connect with very similar types of themes. To me, there's really kind of 2 types of social entrepreneurs. The first type are those sort of bona fide entrepreneurs who have become very successful in the private sector and have now parlayed a fair amount of wealth to the point of being able now to engage in work that they see as also important socially. A person that comes quickly to mind in that regard is Bill Gates, who now has, of course, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They've come to adopt and embrace an agenda of, a twin agenda around the areas of developing charter schools and the elimination of malaria, particularly in Africa. So those have become something of a cause within the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They're not limited by that. They do other work as well, but that's become their cause. And it's one that, again, given Bill Gates' instincts as a business person and his own ability to innovate, I don't believe that he came to embrace those causes because he had a better idea about how to approach them. In fact, he's really taken a lot of pre-existing foundational work and parlayed that into his resource backing to move some of those existing models forward. He certainly didn't invent mosquito netting, and yet that's a major part of what he does, is the distribution of mosquito netting throughout Africa, the malaria-plagued areas. Similarly, the charter school movement had been very well established, and there are many viable models out there, and he's able to be able to select from those types of charter schools and begin to develop the best practices models without actually having contributed personally to a charter school innovation. The second type is the pure entrepreneur, that is again, kind of the social activist, the community activist, who has identified an issue and has now moved forward, sometimes as a movement leader, but very often really at the smaller scale of being a community leader, trying to get some change enacted locally. Of course, you have the Martin Luther Kings and the Cesar Chavez's that are models, sort of those large-scale models of the social entrepreneur in terms of leading movements. But more often than not, these are people, for example, who are out to establish community gardens, for example. Another case might be, for example, I have my own interest in what we call community orchards. Community orchards are kind of an outgrowth of community gardens. They kind of come from that same sediment, the same source. My own ideas along these lines are hardly original. There are several models in many cities all over the United States, and in fact all over the world, that have become viable, but they've become viable in my view because of that social entrepreneur, that single charismatic figure. What becomes problematic in the case of urban orchards is that you are planting trees. Trees take several years to develop, and then you've got them for perhaps decades, in which case you have to extend the operations well beyond perhaps the lifetime of that single founding member. So that then behooves one to look at institutional support for such large-scale and long-term endeavors.